Hello and welcome back to LCC News, where we break down the stories shaping America and the world. In today's episode, we dive into a political and financial firestorm making headlines. Former President Donald Trump has launched a blistering attack on Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, calling into question not just Powell's leadership, but the entire structure of U.S. monetary policy. The response? CNN's Richard Quest calls the comments very damaging, and not just for Powell. What does this clash mean for the Federal Reserve, the economy, and Trump's 2024 campaign? Let's break it down. In a recent interview and subsequent campaign appearances, Donald Trump lashed out at Jerome Powell, calling him clueless, a disaster, and even suggesting he was more dangerous than Biden's economic team. Trump accused Powell of being politically motivated, weak on inflation, and incapable of managing interest rates properly. He even implied that Powell's decisions at the Fed were influenced by partisan pressure, going so far as to call him a political tool of the Biden administration. These are extraordinary accusations, not just because of their tone, but because they challenge one of the most foundational principles in American economics, the independence of the Federal Reserve. Richard Quest is CNN's veteran business correspondent and anchor of Quest Means Business. Known for his dramatic flair and sharp financial insight, Quest reacted swiftly on air to Trump's comments. In a clip that quickly went viral, Quest called the remarks very damaging, not just to Powell, but to the credibility of U.S. financial institutions. According to Quest, when a former president, who may soon be a sitting president again, attacks the central bank in this way, investors around the world take notice. In essence, Quest warns that Trump's rhetoric could rattle global markets, reduce confidence in the U.S. economy, and undermine the very idea of central bank independence. To understand the gravity of this situation, we need to revisit the role of the Federal Reserve. The Fed's job is to manage interest rates, control inflation, and promote stable economic growth. It's designed to operate independently of political pressure, allowing it to make long-term decisions that may be unpopular in the short term. This structure is intentional. If presidents could directly control the Fed, they might lower interest rates to stimulate the economy before elections, risking inflation and long-term instability. That's why Trump's comments raise alarms. Undermining the Fed's credibility could make it harder for Powell or any future chair to do their job without fear of political retaliation. When Powell was first appointed by Trump in 2018, there was optimism, but that quickly changed. Trump publicly pressured Powell to keep interest rates low, even during times when the economy was overheating. In one tweet, Trump even said the Fed had no clue. In another, he joked that the biggest threat to the U.S. economy was Jerome Powell. While many saw these comments as Trump being Trump, unfiltered, combative, others saw them as dangerous attempts to politicize an institution that should remain neutral. Fast forward to 2024, and the attacks are back. But now, with a possible Trump return to the White House looming, they carry more weight. Markets pay attention to words, especially when they come from powerful figures like Donald Trump. When a former president casts doubt on the Fed's integrity, it can have several consequences. Investors may lose confidence in future policy stability. Foreign governments may question the reliability of the US dollar. Bond markets and interest rates may become more volatile. Richard Quest emphasized that if Trump becomes president again and brings the same combative stance toward Powell or replaces him, it could result in policy confusion, instability, and a politicized central bank. Quest concluded, investors want clarity. Trump's comments inject chaos. Jerome Powell is known for his calm demeanor and measured responses. True to form, the Fed has not directly responded to Trump's comments, but insiders report concern behind closed doors. Powell has repeatedly stated that the Fed does not consider politics in its decision-making, and that its sole focus is on economic data and long-term stability. Still, if political attacks escalate, it could create an environment where Fed officials feel constrained, even if they don't admit it publicly. Across the board, economists have reacted with concern to Trump's remarks, Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary, tweeted that Trump's attack on Powell was deeply irresponsible. Mohamed El-Erian, her top economic advisor, said this kind of rhetoric could threaten the Fed's ability to act independently. Even some conservative analysts warned that politicizing the Fed would ultimately backfire on any administration that needs it to act credibly during a crisis. Meanwhile, international analysts are watching carefully, noting that America's financial credibility is one of its strongest global assets. Damaging that trust could have long-term consequences far beyond the campaign trail. Trump's comments may play well with his political base, especially those who blame the Fed for high interest rates, inflation, or slow economic recovery. But they also open him up to criticism from moderates, independents, and swing voters who may see the attacks as reckless or destabilizing. Joe Biden's campaign may seize this moment to argue that Trump's return would bring economic chaos and undermine institutions. On the other hand, if the economy weakens or inflation spikes again, Trump could blame Powell and have it stick regardless of fairness or accuracy. At its core, this isn't just a feud between two powerful men. This is a battle over the future of American institutions, over whether the Fed remains independent or becomes another political tool, over whether financial policy is guided by data or by campaign rhetoric. Richard Quest's reaction, very damaging, may prove prophetic if these attacks continue unchecked. As we move toward the 2024 election, the stakes aren't just about who wins the presidency. They're also about whether America's institutions can withstand the pressure. What do you think? Are Trump's criticisms fair, or are they a threat to U.S. financial stability? Should the Fed be more accountable to elected leaders, or should it remain totally independent? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to LCC News for more in-depth analysis on U.S. politics, the economy, and global affairs. Until next time, stay informed and stay curious.